Hello, everybody. Welcome to Ask the Sex Teacher Anything About Female Pleasure. I'm really excited to be having this conversation with you tonight. I'm Sherry Winston. I'm a holistic sexuality teacher, award-winning author, the founder of the Center for the Intimate Arts, and I am dedicated. I am on a mission to help people have as much pleasure as is humanly possible, which may be considerably more pleasure than you're having now. Tonight's class is focusing on female pleasure, but when I teach to a wide variety of people about lots of ways to have pleasure for everybody. And I've been running around doing that for 16 years now. That was after I retired from being a nurse midwife and gynecology practitioner. I started teaching about sex and creating the holistic sexuality curriculum. And I made all this stuff up because there wasn't really a good word for what I do. That's why I came up with holistic sexuality teacher. And I am now a little tired of the running around thing and also wanting to reach more people. So we've been developing online erotic education. And so tonight is a little tidbit, a little taste of what it would be like to be in an online erotic education class. And we are really excited because we've got a ton of people on the broadcast. And we have already had close to 100 questions that people submitted to us before we even began. So it just tells me what I really already know, which is that people really want to know how to have awesome, amazing pleasure, how to be a great lover, and yeah, just how to have more fun. So we'll get to as many questions as we can. If you're listening live, now would be the time to start writing your questions, posting them. You just go over in that little chat window there and type your questions out, post them, and I will see them. I will get to as many questions as I can, as I hope to do. And I also want to let you know that if your question doesn't get answered now, we might have some other ways to get those questions answered for you. So I'm ready to begin. Carl, my partner and business partner, life partner, is going to be helping out. He's going to be posting the questions that we've already had submitted to us. And, of course, if you're here live, I want to try and get your questions too. So bring them on. Carl, what do you got for me? Carl, what do you got for me? Okay, well, while Carl is figuring out what he's got for me, some of the questions we already have, I will start with a question that I get all the time, and that really is about orgasm, about what orgasm is, and we did have one question about what is an orgasm, what does it feel like? So I will start with that question because not all women have experienced their orgasm yet. And I really want to emphasize that that doesn't mean anybody's broken or that there's anything wrong with you. It's just stuff that you haven't learned yet. Having an orgasm, getting to your orgasm, particularly for women, is really a learned experience. So there's just stuff you haven't learned yet if you haven't gotten there yet. And if you're not sure, if you're kind of asking the question, well, I'm not sure if I'd have orgasms or not, you might be having ones. You might be having small orgasms if you're having pleasure and then you have a little surge of extra pleasure. That could be an orgasmic experience. And at the same time, it might be that you haven't quite gotten it yet. So I'll sort of describe a little bit about what orgasm feels like to me, and I'll actually say also anyone in the audience wants to chime in, anyone who's a woman in the audience wants to chime in and say what orgasm feels like to them, I would welcome that. So for me, and I think for a lot of people, orgasm occurs after a buildup of a lot of erotic energy. It feels like a release and an explosion of intense pleasure. It is often genitally focused, but we can learn how to expand beyond genital focus. I bet we'll talk about that a little bit tonight. So you can have an orgasm with more of your body. And for most women, our starter orgasms, when we first learn to have them, usually are about 30 to 45 seconds long. There's pelvic floor muscle contractions that are also very pleasurable, and we might have movements of other parts of our body, and our brain kind of goes offline and we go into this ecstatic state. So for me, that's one way of describing orgasm. And like I said, if anyone else wants to chime in, go for it. All right. So we have a question from Lily. She says, I'm guessing others have asked this, but what parts of the female pleasure system are involved in squirting? Well, we did get quite a few questions about female ejaculation, also known as squirting or gushing. And so let me see if I can answer a bunch of different questions. The first question is, where does it come from? Well, let me go back a question. The first question sometimes is it real? Is that a true thing? And certainly while people can, women can fake the experience, female ejaculation is absolutely, definitely real. It's not pee, it's a different fluid. And when you combine that experience with orgasm, it's really a spectacular, emotional, intense, erotic experience, right? I recommend learning it. Oh, did I say that? It's learnable. You can learn it. So where does it come from? So women have what I call an erectile network, which is a network of structures all made out of erectile tissue. That's the stuff penises are made out of, you know, the tissue that can get engorged, filled with blood, more sensitive. One component of that network is the urethral sponge. The urethral sponge is a tube of erectile tissue that surrounds the tube of the urethra. The bottom part of that is what people are referring to when they talk about the G-spot. So there is no actual structure called the G-spot. It is part of this real structure called the urethral sponge. So that erectile tissue also has glandular tissue inside it, and these are these little tiny tubular glands, and they make fluid. And the more engorgement there is, the more blood that's in the erectile tissue, the more fluid we can make. And then that fluid can be released, and it can be a few drops, it can be a small gush, it can be fountains, it can be waterfalls of fluid. So it depends on a number of things, including how engorged we get, how much stimulation, how much we release, how much we encourage the fluid to come out. And part of that is mental. Part of that is up here and giving ourselves permission and allowing, which is a big theme in a lot of these orgasmic experiences. So those are some thoughts about ejaculation. We might have a few more questions about it or more details, so bring them on. Meanwhile, let's move on to another question. All right. So Ash says, speaking of squirting, how much liquid is often released? Sometimes I squirt what seems like multiple cups of fluid, sometimes with intense pleasure, and other times spontaneously during intercourse. Well, that's my experience as well. It's a various amounts of fluid. Sometimes it's a small amount. Sometimes even with high-level arousal, and this is different for different women, but for some women at high-level arousal, they start to gush. Other women pretty much usually are only gush with orgasm. These are all possible. The amount of fluid will depend on so many things. It will depend on if you've been drinking enough water all day, you know, that if you're well hydrated or not. I've found that, you know, in the summer when it's really hot and it's hard to stay hydrated, I'm much less likely to produce a lot of fluid. It will depend on the amount of stimulation you have. It'll depend on your mood. And it's not really something that you sort of order up on a menu. Tonight I'll have these outrageous gushy orgasms. But once you get going, if you're well hydrated, you stay well hydrated, you can produce an enormous amount of fluid because the fluid is ultimately coming from your circulatory system. So it comes from the watery part of your blood. And so we've got a huge reservoir of fluid there. So we can produce impressive amounts of fluid once we learn how, well stimulated, well hydrated, and having a good time. So, thanks, Ash. All right, let's see. I think there's another. Okay, so I'm going to go with, this is a question we received because it sort of gets back a little bit to the around the G-spot. So Glenda wants to know where the G-spot is and also how to have orgasms during intercourse. So I'll address both those questions. We'll use that as a little transition. So where it is, so I said it's the tube of erectile tissue that surrounds the urethra, and what people are talking about, the G-spot, they're talking about the bottom of the tube. So the way that you get to that is through the roof of the vagina, or externally through right around the opening of the urethra is the end of that tube. So those are the two places that you can directly stimulate that, but you can also indirectly stimulate it. As Ash was noting, that sometimes during orgasm, sometimes during certain kinds of penetration, vaginally or anally, it will stimulate that tissue. So it can also be indirectly stimulated. And ultimately, if you own this equipment, you can learn how to stimulate it just by using your vaginal muscles. By getting really skilled with your muscles, you can learn how to squeeze and stimulate your own erectile network, including very specific parts of it. And so that really helps you get more skilled at having orgasms and having orgasms at a particular time, like during intercourse. So let's transition to that conversation, because this is a question I also get a lot. So first I want to say that most women don't have orgasms with intercourse. This is kind of an important point. It's as if our culture has told us that's real sex. It's not. It's just one of the sexy things you can do. But penis in vagina intercourse is like it's the real thing, and it's the thing that should get us to orgasm. And that's just not true for most women. So for most women, the easiest, best ways to get to orgasm are with more clitoral stimulation. That would be the head of the clitoris. And orgasm during intercourse is not that common. However, it is something we can learn. So I talk about this a lot, that we learn these skills. We learn how to have orgasms. We learn how to get more turned on. And that includes using our mind, body, heart, and spirit tools, those buckets of tools we have, like breathing and movement and awareness. Those are some of our tools that we can use to learn how to get more orgasmic. And so when we develop orgasmic proficiency, it just means we can get to our orgasm sooner or later, one way or another. And that's sort of the first step for most of us, is how do we get to knowing that we're going to have an orgasm one way or another. And so, again, most of us, that's clitoral stimulation. There's lots of other things that women have found that get them. That's their easy path to orgasm. I mean, it might be using a vibrator. For some women, it might be like lying on your belly and squeezing your thighs together, or humping a pillow. There's lots of options. But however we first learn, that's our first easy path. And then we can start developing additional paths. That's what I call cross-training. And I think there's a little tiny clip on that cross-training. Talk about it in my book. We'll be talking about it in pretty much all of the upcoming online classes about female pleasure. So cross-training is the idea that you take your easy path, you take what you know how to do and you can already do, and then you add to it so that you're doing two things at once. So if your easy path to orgasm, say, is using a vibrator on the head of your clitoris, you do that at the same time you're doing the thing you're trying to train yourself to do, which in this case might be orgasms with intercourse. So clitoral stimulation with the vibrator during intercourse, and then intermittently remove the vibrator. Keep using all your other tools. So you keep doing your breathing, and you keep making sound and moving and pulsing your muscles, and you can use your imagination, right? So that you're using all these other tools that now you've learned how to use because you've been a good student. And and then you intermittently add and remove the most assured stimulation. In this case, the example would be the vibrator. And you start training your body, your mind-body. You get these pathways that start telling your brain, oh, when there's something in my vagina, it stimulates me to have orgasms, just like when there's something stimulating the head of my clitoris. So that's a little bit of a starter on that. Well, I think we'll talk about it a little bit more as well. Let me look at another question. Good. So, great. We're going to go right into this one. So Jeff liked that idea of orgasmic cross-training. Like I said, it's that that's sort of doing two things at once and intermittently removing one stimulation. He wants to know what thoughts accompany the cross-training exercise, since it said that women's greatest erogenous zone is in our heads. So here's the thing. We have these toolkits, the mind, body, heart, and spirit. And the mind toolkit is so powerful. So we have things like our awareness and what we're paying attention to, our imagination. Those are some of our mind tools. So how do we use that in our crush training? Well, imagination, that's like the Swiss Army knife of our brain, because we can imagine anything is happening. So, for example, if the thing that most easily gets you turned on is clitoral stimulation, even when you're not having clitoral stimulation, you can imagine you're having clitoral stimulation. You can imagine a tongue or fingers or waves of water pulsing, and you just, when you imagine it, it literally tells your brain that that's actually what's happening. So that's just one example. Another example in how we could use our mind is words and ideas. So if you're partnering with a woman and you want to help her become more turned on with the cross training, you can actually use words. You can have the words can be well, you can do withholding of orgasm training, right? So you tell somebody not to come, not to come, not to come, and as the woman wants to have an orgasm more and more and more, at a certain point, then you say, okay, now you can come, or a countdown. Okay, you can come on the count of, when we get to 1, 3, 2, 1, and literally start implanting word cues. So those are just a couple of examples of how you can use your mind and how somebody else can play with your mind to help you get even more pleasure and more orgasmic. All right. All right. So many great questions. I can't believe how many great questions we've had. It's going to be hard just to pick which ones to talk about. So John wants to know, can you make every woman have a squirting orgasm? If so, how do I do this for my wife? Well, John, actually you can't make anybody do anything. We can barely make ourselves do anything. So I think what partners can do is support, but what you have to be really careful not to do is create pressure and anxiety. So I think the desire to have an ejaculatory orgasm usually works best when it's coming from the woman. If it's coming from a partner, then it's often more about a performance thing. And yes, I know our partners love to make us come and gush and have all those kinds of experiences. But rather than thinking of it as something you're making your partner do, think of it as you're going to help your partner and support your partner to be more free, more liberated, more connected to her own erotic energy, and do the kinds of things that are going to really help her have awesome arousal and amazing orgasms. Then you can add on to that the kind of things that are likely to enhance ejaculation, which is usually a lot of stimulation to the erectile sponge, the urethral erectile sponge. And the best tool for that job? Somebody else's fingers. So penises, they're maybe not the best tool for that job. So you can do all of those things. You can learn together. Our April online class is about female ejaculation. And I really encourage women and their partners to come to that class, because we're going to talk in lots of detail about all of the things. But like I said, check out that really it's what she wants to do, and then you can figure out all these ways that you can help her do it. Okay. Carmen says, I am plus size, so am I. How about that? And I have trouble holding in my jade egg and walking around or sitting and standing. I do Kegels. I haven't had children. I've used electrode tightening devices. Can weight and fitness make it difficult to hold a jade egg? Okay, well, it's really about your pelvic floor muscles. And so, yes, we've got all these other muscles, and it's not so much about what we can do or not do with the rest of our bodies, or really about the size of our bodies. It's about getting in touch with those pelvic floor muscles. And I think one of the best ways to do that is actually to use your handy-dandy biofeedback tool of, we're back to fingers, your own fingers. So the first thing I want to suggest that you do is when you're not turned on at all, put your fingers inside and squeeze. Notice how much you're squeezing, how much you're able to squeeze your fingers. And then repeat the same thing when you're at very high level arousal, when you've taken the time to make sure that your whole erectile network is really engorged, and then repeat that. So that just gives you a baseline of where your pelvic floor muscles are, and then start to train those muscles. And I think the problem with things like Kegel exercisers and things like that is you're not really getting that much feedback, and they're not usually that much fun to use. So I'm going to recommend, rather than doing that, when you're having sex with yourself, and if you have a partner, when you're having sex with your partner, and I mean all of the sexual activities, not just intercourse or penetration, play with those muscles a lot. This is one of the keys to having easier and better orgasms, is the pelvic floor muscles. And you can do all kinds of fun things. You can put on your favorite dance music and close your eyes and just dance with your pelvic floor muscles. Put your fingers inside, put your hands outside, and you'll start getting really tuned into your pelvic floor muscles, and it will be fun. You won't be doing it because, oh, I have to do these exercises or I'm going to wet my pants. It's more like, oh, I'm aroused, and ooh, when I play with these muscles, I get even more and more aroused. So do it that way, in this fun, playful way that's going to enhance your arousal. And that's when you're going to get really tuned in. And as far as the jade egg practice goes, once you get those muscles a little more skilled and a little more attuned, chances are good that you'll have no problem sucking that egg all the way in and pushing the egg out and holding the egg in. But do something that's going to give you that direct feedback first and make it fun. All right. There was a question I want to go back to. There we go. So Marilla says her vaginal muscles cramp up in orgasm. When that happens, they stay cramped for a long time. Their yoni doesn't want to be touched. I don't blame you. So how do you relax those muscles? How do you relax those things? So one of the things we tend to think of in this culture is women who have pelvic floor muscles that are not strong, that are weak. But what we also have is a lot of women who have pelvic floor muscles that have too much tension. They're stressed and they're tense, and they easily cramp up, or they don't open, they don't relax. And it's just as important to be strong as it is to be relaxed with your pelvic floor muscles. So I suspect if orgasm is causing those muscles to cramp, that I'm guessing that the tone of your pelvic floor muscles is too tense. So what I would recommend for you would be doing practices that involve learning how to open and release and push down. So you can sort of, if we can see this, so you can, imagine that the pelvic floor muscles, they can contract and pull up. We know that, but the pelvic floor muscles can also open out and push down. Does that work? So it's the same kind of movement we do when we're pooping, and everybody, you know how to poop, right? You push down, but you're also opening. And so I would encourage you to start doing some practices where you're opening, relaxing, releasing those muscles. It might be helpful to do hot compresses. That would be a lovely way to do it. You can try it when you're in the bathtub, but you want to figure out how to let go of those pelvic floor muscles. And if you're still finding that that's a challenge for you, you might want to find one of the physical therapists that specializes in working with the pelvic floor, because you might have some areas that basically need physical therapy, that need some manipulation and things that will help them relax and release. And it's great that now there are physical therapists who specialize in that work. And so if they're still tense and tight at that point, then it's time to get a little professional help. Okay. And when you do have that experience, when you are having vaginal muscle cramps, I would recommend, again, hot compresses on your yoni would be lovely. Yoni is the Sanskrit sacred word for vulva, by the way, in case people don't know that. Also, abdominal hot compresses could be useful at that point. Breathing is probably essential, and really kind of consciously letting those muscles release and relax down. One more thing I want to say is to just pay attention to what you do with your body as you get close to orgasm and go through your orgasm. Are you tensing up, basically? And you might want to explore relaxing into orgasm, right? Like we have a cultural map of arousal that tends to be based on a more masculine, or what I tend to call a yang model of sort of pushing and building tension and just getting it really like that. And there's a more yin or feminine releasing way to do that, where you're going into more of like a relaxing into the wave. So just notice your body posture, the level of tension, what's happening with your breathing. Are you stopping breathing? Are you literally holding your breath? And look at all those things, because there might be some things you're doing that are really adding tension instead of letting the orgasm be a release of tension. So you can think of it, the difference between the orgasms like that, which are also good orgasms, or the orgasms that are like kind of orgasms. Play with that. We're going to talk about that, in fact, in the next online class, in the Secrets of Female Pleasure class. We'll talk about that a lot. Okay. Okay, let's see what else. So many awesome questions. Great. Excellent. A question about anal sex. Fabulous. Janelle asks, my boyfriend and I recently started having anal sex, and to my pleasant surprise, I enjoy it. Yay! Because if you weren't enjoying it, I would hope you would be doing it. Is it okay that my boyfriend comes in me this way? Yes, it's absolutely fine. If you are fluid bonded, that is, if you're already sharing bodily fluids, ejaculating in your anus, no problem at all. If you're not sharing bodily fluids, then you should have a condom on. Also curious what you think of dirty talk and slight choking. I never pictured myself being kinky in this way, but it always enhances the stimulation. It's really interesting what we consider kinky and not kinky, because it's really been changing a lot over time. So as far as dirty talk, or what I like to think of as wild and wanton words, using words and using language to enhance the erotic experience is another way of using your mind to get turned on, and playing with somebody else's mind to turn them on and share that arousal. And of course, if you're having solo sex, you can imagine somebody saying those things to you. So I think that's a great way to get turned on. And the only thing I would say is that when you're having sex with a partner, you want to make sure that you have a mutual turn-on language that works for both of you, right? Because there might be certain words or phrases or ways of saying things that would not be a turn-on, and other ways that would. So this is a great opportunity to practice good erotic communication and check in with each other about what works and what kinds of fantasies and words and play work for both of you. Now, let's talk about the slight choking. So, slight meaning just like a hand here, cool. Anything that actually obstructs the airway is dangerous, and it's one of the things that I really advise against. So I really want you to pay attention to that, because we see a lot of, in the porn culture, we see a lot of what looks like some pretty serious choking. And the truth is that anytime you're choking another person, you actually can kill them by accident. That would really be not good for everybody. So it's really, you can set off literally a biochemical, physical brain reaction that disrupts the breathing mechanism. So a little light play here, go for it. But really try and keep that light. One last thing, because you did mention anal sex, and I was talking about the porn model and the bad information it gives us, and that is anytime anything is in or near your anus, that same thing, whether it's a finger or a penis or a toy, should not go anywhere near any other holes. That is, it should not go in your vagina, it should not go in your mouth. And again, what we're seeing in porn is a lot of really bad teaching about that, because that is how we get infections and spread diseases. So keep your butt stuff in your butt. If you do want to go from the butt to one of the other holes, put a condom on, and then take the condom off before you go into any other orifice. Thanks, Janelle. All right. Okay. So as you know, I used to be a nurse midwife and gynecology practitioner, so I love when we get to questions that overlap in those realms. So M is asking, how do you explain bleeding during sex? It's not a lubrication problem. So what might cause me to bleed? Well, it's actually something you should get checked out. You should go see your healthcare provider. Some women just have a cervix that's very, what's called friable. That means that with a little bit of banging around, it bleeds easily. You might also be the type of woman when you go get a pap smear and they stick that little brush in or they do the little scrape, you get a little bleeding. That's not unusual, but it could be a sign of an infection, so it's always good to check that out. If you're getting any more bleeding than that, again, it could be something really normal, but it could be a sign of a problem. So that's one of those indicators that I say, oh, it's worth going to get checked out. So go get that checked out. All right. Oh, so many good questions. All right. So Mary says, how do I explain to my husband I'm not experiencing orgasm anymore, even with oral sex? I'm 54. So I will also mention that we got a good number of questions around menopause, postmenopausal sex, loss of libido, orgasm, either not as powerful as it used to be, not as easy to get to orgasm, or not having orgasms at all. So menopause. So hey, I'm there. So I'm really coming at this from a personal perspective, exploring what really goes on for me in menopause, and I can say that definitely things are different. So there's no doubt about it. There are hormonal shifts, and they have real effects. So I'm not downplaying them at all. And at the same time, this is where we start having conscious choice about what we want to do about it. So if we're having libido issues, in fact, I did a whole online class last year about libido for women. So if anyone's having those issues, you might want to check it out. You can get the recorded version. But so libido is one piece of it. And what are we going to do about that? Well, again, it's a conscious choice. We can choose to keep feeding our erotic energy, keep choosing to do what we need to do to have orgasms, and the more we choose that, the more the energy keeps running. So I really encourage women to keep having regular orgasms. Lubrication definitely changes, and there's a lot of wonderful natural products that we can get that help with vaginal lubrication, things we can do. I also like to suggest coconut oil suppositories, right? Because the thing isn't just about lubing up sort of on the outside of the vulva, but we want to get lube up inside the vagina. And you can use lube applicators, which are basically a big syringe with no needle on it. You can make little cold coconut oil sticks, put them up there, and then they melt down. It's useful to get some good natural herbal product that's going to help keep the tissue as healthy as possible. Again, the more often you get aroused and turned on and engorged, the healthier the tissue will stay. So part of that is really just choosing it. Now, the orgasm part. So for me, and I see this with a lot of women, it's not as easy to have orgasms as it used to be. Now, I feel really lucky because I've been, sort of doing orgasmic training for decades now, so I know what to do so I can enhance my erotic experience using my inner tools. So that's a really key piece of it. And again, this is about, I think, looking at menopause as an opportunity, or at least on a good day, look at it as an opportunity. On a bad day, you might be like, menopause. But look at it as an opportunity to start learning and exploring new things. And also kind of accepting things are different. Like my erotic imagination has changed dramatically. I'm more turned on by physical stimulation. I'm more turned on using my inner tools, breathing, sound, movement, than I am by fantasy and story. Like, who knew that was going to happen? So again, it's about not kind of bumming out about it, but just going like, oh, that's interesting. Okay, well, then I will focus more on the physical stimulation and using my inner tools. And then the last thing I would say, Mary, is, well, no, I'll say two more things. One is, are you having orgasms by yourself? And you say you're not having orgasms with your husband. So I want to encourage you to do more solo sex and practice and play by yourself and find what might be really new paths to get you to your orgasm. And explaining to your husband, this is normal stuff that happens for a lot of women during menopause. This is what's happening. And then this is what I'm doing about it. I'm going to have more solo sex. I'm going to try different things. I'm going to expand. I'm going to explore. This is how you can help me do that. And also sort of make it a little bit of a joint project to discover new things that will turn you on. And again, for me, it's often about more stimulation than I used to need. So give that a whirl. Okay. All right. So we'll stay on menopause a bit here for a minute. As a woman in my later 40s, I'm aware of perimenopause, menopause being closer rather than further away. Oh, yes, it is. What things may I encounter as my body changes, or things I can do to support sustaining or increasing pleasure during this time? How do I support my physical and emotional bodies? Great questions. So, perimenopause is the 5 to 10 years before menopause, and menopause is officially means that last period, right? Then that's the last one. It stops, and then after that, you're postmenopausal. So in your 40s is a good time to practice lots of pleasure, really learn how to have awesome orgasms and awesome arousal, because that is going to make it easier when you get to the postmenopausal part. There's obviously all the sort of basic stuff about nutrition and exercise, meditation, and all of those things that everyone will tell you is going to be useful. I think it's also a good time in your life to really check in with yourself about, in this case, since we're in the sexual realm, really, is your sex life what you want it to be? Is your whole life what you want it to be, really? So I think that the prep for menopause is about expanding your pleasure, getting more connected with your body, finding the things that you love to do that are going to be good for you. And the changes that are most likely going to happen are, well, there's so many things. Periods can get totally wonky. You can get them more frequently or less frequently. They can get lighter, they can get heavier. They can stay really regular and then just stop. They could be super irregular for years. All of these things are normal. Some women have increased libido at this time. It's like your body's kind of going like, quick, make one more baby. Let's get going there. So a lot of women will experience increased libido. Once you get in that more menopausal, right around menopause and just after, all of the classic things that I think you've probably heard about, with things like hot flashes, which are usually things you can control with diet, nutrition, supplements, herbs, those kind of plant allies. Vaginal changes, definitely, those are real. Vaginas age just like the rest of us. Sleep can get really disturbed, and that's a thing to look out for, and really pay attention to all the things that can help us get good sleep. And mood. So there's definitely the mood thing. For some women, it's like being that sort of premenstrual kind of thing that some women get more of, with the irritability and so forth, can get to be more of a thing in perimenopause. And again, I think this is like a way of our mind body saying, I need to take care of me more. That's what I think a lot of that stuff is. I need some me time. So you can look at all of those things. All right. Okay, more questions. Lay them on me. Okay. Oh, is that supposed to be private? Okay. This is a question someone sent in. Ginny used to have a good orgasmic practice, but it's gone dead in the last 3 years. Please recommend solo or partner practices for bringing her orgasm back. Also note she had some abdominal scarring to deal with. So I will say that surgery and scar tissue are a factor and can really affect our arousal response, the degree that our erectile tissue gets erect, nerves. I mean, so scarring, scar tissue, and surgery definitely can have an effect. And I believe when I read Ginny's question originally, I think perhaps she was also menopausal. So I think that those were all factors. But some solo or partner practices. So first I'll start with solo because I think everything actually starts with our solo practice. And so what I would recommend is first just pay attention to what you're doing now. Just take yourself through your arousal journey and your orgasm, and don't do anything different, but just notice what you're doing. How long do you take to get aroused? What are the things you do? What are your habits? Because most of us have kind of a go-to, this is how I have an orgasm, I do this, I play with that, la la la, have an orgasm. So I want you to start by just looking at that and noticing if you're sort of in a rut with yourself. Are you being a good lover to yourself? What can you do to start expanding that? And when I talk about expanding orgasm, I almost always start by actually talking about expanding arousal. So without focusing on orgasm so much, I want you to focus on arousal and becoming masterful at going deeply into your arousal. Arousal is an altered state of consciousness. And so when we go into that altered state, we can be in kind of a shallow trance and go through it really fast and have a little orgasm and then be done. Or we could take our time and really enhance our trance. So once you've noticed what your normal pattern is, then I want you to start expanding that a little bit. So just play with breathing more. So you might want to spend a couple of weeks in your solo practice just playing with breath, breathing deeper, breathing faster, breathing slower. You know, just notice normally when I get here, I breathe really fast, and try to do that differently. Say, what if when I get to high level arousal, instead of breathing really fast, what happens if I slow it down? And this is about running experiments. This is all about running experiments in your own learning laboratory. And then notice what happens. And anything that deepens your arousal, then you're kind of like, okay, now I'm going to keep that in my repertoire. That's one of my little tricks. And then you might want to start playing with sound. That might be a great next thing to add, and start noticing what kinds of sounds enhance your arousal and get you more deeply in trance. Play with movement, particularly pelvic floor movement and hip rocking and spinal undulation. And just those 3 things alone can give you tons and tons of practices. You can use all those same things with a partner as well, by the way. So breathe more, breathe deeper, make sounds, explore different sounds, see what they do, and play with movement. And that alone should be pretty enhancing. And like I said, all of those are things you can do with a partner. Okay, what else? Let's see. Domina says, can you explain how the brain body works with women to build desire and arousal? Yeah, kind of. I'm going to spend, my Secrets of Female Pleasure course that we're doing next month. Basically, there's a lot of time on this topic because it's a big topic, but I'm just going to try and give you some little ideas about it. So I think, like I said, our cultural map of arousal tends to be a more masculine-centered map, which is really about a sort of fast buildup of erotic energy, going up quickly, having a ejaculatory orgasm, and then it's over. And for most men, not all men, but most men, their core erotic energy is this hot, fast, fiery energy that I call yang energy. And that makes sense that yang energy, it's hot and fast and fiery and it goes up quickly. Most women, our erotic energy is the opposite of that. So for most women, our core erotic energy, that is our deeper, more central erotic energy, is more of the yin energy. Yin energy is slow and it's cool and it's watery, and it starts out here, and then it has to filter to through all these other energy centers before it gets to the genitals. It's as if every time we get aroused, we have to kind of go through this process of heating that energy up and pulling it into our center. And so if we're trying to fit our experience into that male model, it doesn't work, it doesn't fit. If the action is genitally focused, particularly before our energy gets there, then we're usually kind of going like, wait, but I'm not there yet. My energy's not there yet. So I think if we want to really understand female arousal, we need to honor and respect that normal, common process of warming up, of taking time to feel connected and safe, to turn on the mind, to turn on the non-sexual parts of the body, and then slowly, lovingly, gently, in a nurturing way, and in a fun, hot way, bringing the energy into the more erotic parts of the body. And so it's usually slower, it's usually more full body, and it connects in a way the erotic centers of the brain and the erotic centers of the body in that direction, so what goes, sort of from here to here, and that masculine energy can go the other way. So that was a little teeny tiny tidbit of about that connection. So and then building desire is often about anticipation, teasing, tantalizing. It's about making yourself want, or making somebody else want something. And how do you build up that appetite? It's like if you're eating all day, you're not going to be hungry for the feast, right? You want to get a little hungry, and then you have a little nibble of something, and it builds the appetite. So again, I think that our cultural model, or the porn model, which is so generally focused and quick and sort of about the mechanics of it, is the kind of opposite of what builds arousal and desire in most women. Okay. Brian says, my wife moves the top of her body wildly and uncontrollably during sex, yet she does not have contractions and not much pleasure. What can she do to increase her level of pleasure? Well, I'm wondering, again, I'm not talking to your wife, so I can't ask her, but I'm wondering if it's that the energy isn't moving down into her genitals and isn't really coalescing. So I would be interested to explore what would happen if she does more pelvic movements. What would happen if she plays with her pelvic floor muscles? And what would happen if she slowed down and tuned in and took more time? Now I'm guessing when you say during sex, you mean intercourse. And a lot of people, when they say that, they mean intercourse. So I'm not sure if you mean any sexual activities, but I'm going to guess that you mean during intercourse. And we talked about intercourse and arousal and orgasm before, and how for a lot of women, it's not the most orgasmic producing activity. One of the other things about intercourse is that for women who aren't quite ready to have penetration, it's also something that can cause us to kind of turn off that part of our body. Premature penetration is one of the big issues I think we have around sex. It's like we think sex is supposed to be about intercourse, and we're supposed to get there as fast as we can and spend as long as possible doing it. However, if we reframe that to don't put anything in the vagina until the vagina owner is absolutely sort of desperate and begging to have something in the vagina, then intercourse becomes a very different experience. So I'm wondering again, maybe you want to take intercourse off the table for a while and you want to play with other sexual activities that are going to help your wife learn how to turn on her genitals more and bring her awareness, her energy down into her genitals. And that might not be intercourse. So those are all things I would explore. And this kind of goes for both men and women, but there's a technique I call buttering. And it's about moving energy through the body by using touch, and it's using a very firm touch. And you sort of imagine that erotic energy is this big lump of buttering. You kind of spread it down or you spread it up. So for men who have a lot of genital energy and are wanting to learn how to spread it out, slow it down, feel more of a whole body experience, you might stroke across the penis and firmly up the belly and up to the heart, or down the legs, down to the feet. For anyone whose energy is kind of diffuse and distracted and out here and up here, you can use that same technique to bring the energy down. So it might mean stroking down all the way down the front of her body, down towards her crotch, or down her spine, down towards her crotch, up her legs, up to her crotch. Again, taking your time and really turning on the rest of the body, and then when that's turned on, bringing that energy into the genitals and see what goes on. Kind of last but not least, I'll say that there are a lot of women who have good reason to have numbed out their genitals because they've had some history of trauma or abuse, and if that's the case, if that's part of what's going on, then that needs to be addressed as well. Those are all different approaches, right? I'm always doing this sort of holistic, integral kind of thing. So there's a lot of stuff that could be part of that. So have fun finding out what increases her level of pleasure. All right. Well, we have some questions about the online courses. So I'm just going to take a moment and notice that Ginny is asking if you want to take the whole cluster. So the winter cluster is basically, I'll even show you. I'll show you. There, that's the winter cluster. So it's Secrets of Female Pleasure in February, Women's Anatomy of Arousal in March, Female Ejaculation in April. And if you go to the page on the website, so you go to intimateartcenter.com and you go to that page, you'll see that there is a discount if you take all 3 courses. So that's sort of beyond the discount that we will be offering you tonight. Should I tell them now? I'm going to tell them now. All right, I'm going to tell you now. So if you do want to take the next class, which is the Secrets of Female Pleasure class, we're offering you like this super giant special price right now, only good to midnight. And so you go to the tinyurl.com, female pleasure class, and use coupon code pleasure-59, and that will give you the course for actually more than 50% off. But that's only good till midnight. And if you do want the whole course cluster, there's a special price for that. Okay, let's see. Heather says, speaking of moving energy in the body, can you share more about moving energy in full body orgasm? I'd love to. I'll come back. I'll show you that slide again at the end. Okay, so moving energy in the body. Well, one thing is energy moves where you move it. So, I mean, even if you just shake your hand like this for like 30 seconds and then you stop, your hand's going to be energized. So any kind of movement of any part of your body is going to bring energy there. So that's one way to move energy. So if your energy is up here and you want to bring it down, you might roll it down your spine. You might undulate your spine, pump your pelvic floor muscles, shake your hips, shimmy your butt. All of those things will bring that energy in. The other thing is energy will follow wherever your awareness and attention goes. So literally if I said, okay, everybody think about your right big toe, all of a sudden you're thinking about that and some energy goes there. So the same way we can use that to move energy. So if we have a lot of genital energy and you're like thinking, I'd like to have this be more full body, you can imagine it going up your spine. You move your spine, imagine it going up your spine. You can visualize. Visualization is a great way to move energy. You can imagine color or light or molten lava pouring up your spine. You can do the classic Kundalini thing and see the snake winding its way up your spine, and the energy will follow that. So basically, wherever you believe it will go, it will go. So that's one of the ways to really move the energy. You can move it with touch also. So again, if you're doing touch with yourself or with a partner, you're going to spread that energy out. You'll take it all the way down the arms, all the way down the legs, all the way up the spine, through the head. And so you can imagine that you can see the energy channels. All of the sacred sexuality traditions have different kinds of channels that energy moves in. So you can look at those and go, well, next time I'm having sex, I'll just imagine it's pouring up my inner channel, or I'll imagine it's circulating through my chakras. So those are all energy maps that you can get from traditional cultures, and try them on and see if it fits your experience of energy. So those are all fun ways to play with your energy. Okay. So many questions. Let's see. Ash says, it always kind of bothered me that my breasts do not really have much sensation. I do get aroused when my breasts are touched, but I can tell it's more because of the idea that it's sexy and not that it actually feels particularly sensational. My breasts are quite small. Maybe that's a factor. Well, size has nothing to do with sensation. It might be if you have, if you are, feeling shy or inhibited or concerned, or like there's something wrong with your breasts because they're small, but there's nothing wrong with them. They're just the size they are, and it's a wonderful size, and they're all good. All these body parts are good. But I also think in our culture, the women, we can turn off the sensation to our breasts. Sometimes because breasts get so much negative attention in our culture, I think sometimes we kind of want to we're just going to shut that down and we're not going to let the energy move there. So some things to explore would be turning your breasts on. Again, start by doing it by yourself. And take the energy from wherever you have it, so you have a lot of genital energy, and bring that energy up to your breasts, either by moving your hand, visualizing it, or another great technique is putting one hand on your vulva and the other hand on your breasts, and just holding, and then stroking, and then seeing what happens when you really start taking the time to love your breasts and connect your genital energy to your breasts, because they are hardwired in. I mean, breasts are literally connected, neurologically connected to our genitals and neurologically connected to our pleasure centers in our brain. Mother Nature planned on that because of the whole babies, breastfeeding, bliss bonding thing that goes on. So this is about turning that circuit on that probably got turned off for, some good reasons, because you needed to protect yourself or because you had some experiences or anxieties or beliefs. So all the pleasure potential is there. And it's just about reconnecting it up. And that's usually an easier one to connect up because you've got such great hardwiring there. So that's kind of an easy one in some ways. So do some breast loving. Get some wonderful, organic, natural breast cream and massage them. And, when you're in the shower and the water's running on them, close your eyes and really tune into the sensations. And definitely when you're having sex play with yourself or others, connect that energy up. And I do love that doing a kind of practice where you'd have a hand on your genitals and a hand on your breasts, and you visualize an energy connection. Like I'm a very visual person, so I'll see a light and a channel, and then breathe into that channel. So you're breathing, and remember the heart's right there too. So connect that up to the heart energy. It's just a great place to do self-love practices. So there's so much yummy potential there. So I hope you have a lot of fun playing with that. So many more. I just want to tell you again how many amazing, awesome questions there are, because like I said, we got almost 100. So I know that there's a lot we haven't gotten to yet. Okay, so this is a tiny bit off topic because we're talking about female pleasure, but we get pleasure by giving pleasure too. So Carmen is asking, what are a few breathing exercises men can do to relieve erectile dysfunction and premature ejaculation and delay ejaculation? Would you mind sharing some tips, some edging tips for women to do on our partners? So again, part of pleasure is giving pleasure. And I'll just add learning how to actually get off on giving pleasure, which gives more pleasure. So that's a whole piece of this. But just to start with, it's about helping our partners do some of the same things that I'm talking about us learning how to do, which is turn on more parts of our body. How to take, for men who have an erection and don't want to ejaculate rapidly or quickly or before they feel like it's time, the same tools, the breathing, the sound, the movement that we've been talking about that women often can use to bring more energy into their genitals, men can use those same things to take the energy and move it out. So the same kind of visualization, we visualize the energy moving up the spine. We use touch, we stroke up the body or down the legs, or we put a hand on the penis and then the other hand on their heart. Help your partner by helping them learn to identify the point of no return. So the point of no return is when they're going to ejaculate and there's really nothing they're going to do about it at that point. So what we want to help them do is learn to find the point before the point of no return. And the best way for them to do that is probably in their solo play. So we want to encourage our guys to, in their solo play, don't just like, jerk off and have an orgasm and ejaculate and be done. Bring their arousal energy up, get themselves excited, get hot, get up there in their arousal, but not to the point of no return, and then let their arousal energy come down again. Cool off, slow down, and then bring it up again, but not all the way, and then bring it down again. And then the third time, maybe go for it. And so if, guys, if you practice that in your solo play, you'll get better at managing your own erotic energy. And then it's something we also can do with our men, which is we need really good communication, because otherwise we'll take them right over the edge because, we're so sexy and awesome. So get good signals from your partner. So you can bring them into their arousal, but not all the way over. Now, for men who are having erectile dysfunction, it's more like the kinds of techniques I was talking about that we might want to use with women, which is about bringing their energy down into their genitals and using their pelvic floor muscles to learn how to hold it there and pump it and play with it. Now, remember, the thing with erectile dysfunction is there's physical erectile dysfunction, and then there's more mental, emotional, energetic. So if it's physical, for example, someone with diabetes that's progressed to a certain point, the blood vessels in the erectile tissue can be damaged and they just don't work. So there's really not going to be anything that's going to get that penis hard. That doesn't mean there's not a lot of pleasure to be had. Men can still get aroused and have orgasms without a hard penis, and there's lots of fun things to do with soft penises. So it doesn't mean your sex life is over just because a man can't get hard, and there are certain activities that you won't be able to do anymore because there's still so many you can do. And if the erectile dysfunction has more of a psychological component, then there's lots of things that we can do to play with that energy. But this gets back to an earlier question we had about female ejaculation. Pressure, performance anxiety is nobody's friend in the bedroom. Anxiety is no one's friend. Anxiety is pretty much the opposite of arousal. So I think one of the things we want to do is take the pressure off, focus on the fun, focus on the pleasure, and you know, orgasm and hard-ons and all of these other things are wonderful, yummy things that happen and can happen sometimes, but they don't have to happen. So keep the focus on the pleasure. Okay. So, I'll do another kind of about the online classes. Jeannie asked about the individual classes versus the cluster. So, as Carl says, they're designed to be synergistic. That's the word I want. Synergistic. So that's why we have the sort of female pleasure course cluster. If you take all 3 courses, you'll get more out of each one. You can also just take each individual course, and you'll get a lot out of that. But I think this is a topic that there's so many pieces to that's why there's 3 different courses. So the first one is really, it's about energy and arousal and the sort of how that operates, and that's the secrets of female pleasure. And the anatomy one is about the anatomy, which many of you know is sort of one of my specialties. I'm kind of the anatomy expert. I am, it's true. That one really focuses on all the parts women have, how they're connected, why they're there, how they operate, how to make them happy, how to pleasure them. And then the last one is really focusing on female ejaculation because, hey, it's really an awesome thing to learn how to do. And if you've got the equipment, and if you're a woman who is born female, then you have that equipment. If you're a man with a vagina, you have that equipment too. And then you can learn how to do it. So, great. Let me see if I can get in another question or two. Heather recently met a woman who spoke of having an orgasm that lasted 7 days. Woohoo! Bet she didn't get too much else done, though. I was so intrigued by this, I wasn't able to speak with her directly about it. The thing I remember her commenting on about it was the importance of being able to contain the energy. How can I foster an orgasm lasting 7 days? Well, I will say that I think there's different levels of orgasm. So I can say that if I was having an orgasm for 7 days, I wouldn't get anything else done. So I just want to sort of start with my own experience. I've definitely gone for hours, but I haven't gone for days. But I think the way that you could get there, because I totally get that it's possible to do that. Like I said, I wouldn't be able to get too much else done. But I think the way it's possible to get there is by taking those steps of getting more proficient with your orgasm, right? That you can always get one sooner or later somehow, and then developing orgasmic mastery. And the more mastery you gain, the easier it is to have any of these experiences. I have had orgasms that go on for hours and hours and hours. At a certain point, though, I need to stop. For me, but it's really a choice at that point where you're kind of like, okay, 3 hours is good. I'm going to be happy for the next 3 days. So, but there's a mental component to it at that point where you're deciding what to do and what you can do. So, I think you should talk to this person and find out about her experience. I would love to, because I'm always curious. What is that like to, did you go to work? Did you cook dinner? Did you drive your car? I don't think it's really good for me to be driving when I have orgasms, but maybe if you're in a lighter orgasmic state, you could do all of those things. So I mean, I'm always learning. I think that this is one of the fun things about sex is it's like being a musician. You're never done learning how to play your instrument and what other kinds of music you can make with it. I did a female orgasm class last fall also, where we talked about this a bunch, but you start by learning how to have an orgasm and then another orgasm, and then you learn how to expand the orgasm so it lasts longer, and then you can kind of ride that orgasmic wave, and once you can do that, you can basically keep going as long as you have the capacity and the desire. So I hope that's useful. And I'd love to talk to your friend. All right. That wasn't what I was trying to click on something else. Sorry. There we go. Brian says, can a woman have an orgasm without contractions? Part of the physiological response of orgasm is pelvic floor muscle contractions, but they don't have to be that powerful, and if the muscles aren't very strong, they might not be that obvious. So unless you have your fingers inside there and are really feeling those pelvic floor muscles, you might not notice the pelvic floor muscle contractions, but they are definitely a part of the orgasmic response. I hope that's useful. All right. I'm looking back at. Jenny says, can you recommend some sources that we could dig into to develop fantasies we can turn to when we need to imagine sexier ideas? Well, you know, there's going to be different things for different people. So I think what most people are using these days is porn. And that's going to work for some people. It's very visually oriented. A lot of it does tend to be more male fantasy focused. But there is some porn out there that I know some women like. I'm not the person to ask about it because it's just not how my imagination gets fired up, generally speaking. So I watch porn kind of like an anthropologist, right? I'm like, that's so interesting that they're doing that, or wow, that's a terrible idea from a healthcare perspective, or wow, people get turned on by really interesting things. So that's kind of my relationship with porn. But there is some porn out there that's more woman friendly, and there are some stores like a lot of the women run sexuality boutiques like Good for Her, which developed or was part of initiating the Feminist Porn Awards. So there's sites like that where they've got really good reviews, I think, that are very helpful in helping women figure out what visual erotica might work for them. For me, what tends to work better is short stories, so I can activate my imagination, and usually erotica written by women, for women, is what works best for me. And there's lots of collections of those kinds of stories. You can find some online too. I will say that one of the things about the online classes is that I give lots of these resources, and that kind of question just spurs me to come up with a whole page of resources for people. And we also have a chat group and a discussion group, so it's a place where we can share those resources. So Jenny, I hope you join us, and we'll get more detailed about some of the things we could find that will help keep us turned on. Let's see if I've missed anything else. One last look. Again, as I mentioned before, oh yeah, I'll go back. There's your offer. There's your special offer, good till midnight. And I hope that lots of you come play, because these online classes are so much fun. So by the way, I don't know if I mentioned this, but the online class, there's a weekly live webinar. So lecture and discussion and questions and answers and conversations. There's a social group. There's tons of resources. I love resources, so I give you lots of articles and blog posts and just all sorts of other resources. So let's see. Okay, I will say one more thing, because we did have a bunch of questions about from men about pleasing women and how to do a better job of that. So there is an art to it, and there's no doubt about it. It's a learned set of skills. I think a lot of people in our culture have this idea that men come pre-programmed knowing how to turn women on and get them to have orgasms, and they don't. It's not fair to expect that. And since we tend to be energetically wired in an opposite way, it's also not fair to expect that men are going to know how to turn women on, because often things work the other way, right? So for many men, they can get very turned on by genital stimulation. Not all men, but a lot of men. For most women, we want to be energetically, mentally aroused. We want the rest of our body, our non-sexual body, turned on, and then we want our genitals turned on energetically before you play with them. And that's really confusing to a lot of men. So I think it behooves men to, at first, obviously, lots of communication about the topic, but to really learn how to think of women like pussycats and men like puppy dogs. This is another map I use a lot, the pussies and puppies one, and it's a good quick one. So the thing is, with most of the time you meet a dog and they're active, enthusiastic, and friendly, and they sniff your hand and you pet them, and 30 seconds later, most dogs, you can have them on their back scratching their belly. They're like, yes, please, rub my belly, yes. So for a lot of people, that masculine young energy is very dog-like. And then if you think of women more like pussycats, so if you came over my house and met my pussycat, and you tried to rub her belly 30 seconds after you met her, you would be bleeding and she would be gone. Right? So the way that you get to pet a pussycat is you start by making a connection and taking your time and petting the pussycat the way the pussycat wants to be petted. And the pussycat, she can't say, yeah, I don't like that, or that's not working. So you have to be attuned. You have to be attentively attuned to the signals that the pussycat gives out. And she will give you those signals. She's opening and relaxing and towards you, and you're like, oh, okay, now she wants to be petted here. And so if you are attuned to those signals of opening, sooner or later, if you go at the right pace, that's her pace, you will get that purring puddle of pussy that you're after. But only if you're there really sort of serving the feminine energy and being attentive to it. And so in the very short version of what we'll talk about a lot more in classes, that's treat your woman like the pussycat that she probably is. All right. So we are going to have to finish up. So I just delighted that so many people joined us, that we got so many questions, and in fact, I'm going to use those questions to make sure that I cover all that information in the upcoming series of 3 online classes. So thanks for those questions. And I'm so excited that you were all here for this. I hope that you got a lot out of it. What else can I tell you? I wish we had time for more. I literally have so many questions that we didn't get to, but we touched on a lot of the topics. So I will remind you again that our online classes are what we're focusing on now, and I'm really figuring out how to go from teaching this stuff I've been teaching live for 16 years and doing how to do it online so I can reach lots of people and people all over the world, and how we can have a lot of fun together and do this in a virtual way. So I hope I will be seeing you, so to speak, at Secrets of Female Pleasure. I'll remind you again, tinyurl.com/female-pleasure-class is how you get to the class info, and that your coupon code pleasure-59 is actually only good tonight. So get on it, get there, and if you want to do the whole class cluster, there's discounts for that as well. So thank you all so much for coming. I'm Sherry Winston, and like I said, I'm on a mission. I'm on a mission to create a world with a lot more pleasure, a lot more sexually satisfied people, a lot more erotically educated people, and so I'm just doing my job. Thanks so much for helping me do it by participating. So come on down and play, y'all. Thank you, and have an awesome, pleasurable night. Juicy blessings, everyone.